Hey everybody, it's Shaman Sister Sin, and you're listening to the Meditations and More podcast brought to you by shamanspiritcenter.com and littleshaman.org. That's me, Little Shaman. Today I wanted to talk to you about why change is so difficult for narcissistic people. There are generally four main reasons for that, so I thought we could talk about it on the show today. The first reason is the inability to see the problem. The behaviors and mindsets associated with pathological narcissism are largely defensive, even if they don't seem to be. They are the result of malfunctioning defense and coping mechanisms. These things can be created in different ways. For example, if a narcissistic adult had a narcissistic parent and was subjected to narcissistic abuse as a child, their brain may have created defense mechanisms to protect them against being unfairly blamed and made responsible for things they were not at fault for or not in control of. This defense mechanism was very important and very necessary for the child, but over time, it can evolve into dysfunction for an adult because it can result in an inability to ever take responsibility for anything. Because anything even remotely sounding like blame immediately triggers a defense reflex of denial, deflect, reject, and avoid. It's fight or flight. They will either fight the threat or run from it using one or more of their standard coping mechanisms. Gaslighting, blame shifting, stonewalling. As part and parcel of this particular defense mechanism, they may also see themselves as the constant victim in their relationships. Not only are they projecting their own uncomfortable or threatening feelings onto their environment and therefore perceiving other people as the source of these feelings because of that, but they're also making sure they're protected from being blamed. If you're the victim, you cannot be to blame for anything. You have not acted, but rather you've been acted upon. Because if you're to blame, you're bad. If you're bad, you're flawed. And if you're flawed, you're worthless. This must therefore be avoided at all costs, even if reality must be completely denied in order to do so. This is the mindset of pathologically narcissistic people. They don't want to see the problem, and even if they could, their dysfunction is set up to prevent them from seeing exactly the things that could help them to change. The second reason is an inability to understand the problem. Part of the reason they can't see the problem is that they don't understand the problem. They don't think they're being unfair to other people, for example, and even if they are, so what? Why is this a big deal? Everyone is unfair to them. They never get anything they want. They never get what they need. Their entire life is a struggle. So what if they're being unfair and getting what they deserve for once? Everyone else gets everything they want all the time. Or, so what if they're being unfair? They're special, and here's the 50 reasons they deserve more than their fair share, even if it hurts others. You should be willing to sacrifice because that's what people do when they love someone. It doesn't matter that they never do it. This is not about that. This is about what they deserve, not what somebody else deserves. In the mind of the narcissistic person, there's always going to be sincere justification for their behavior. They don't understand why it's wrong and they don't care anyway. How can anything which will make them happy ever be wrong? Oh, it will hurt you in the process? Well, you're selfish because you don't want them to be happy. This does seem to be sincere on their part. They truly don't seem to understand why you don't want them to be happy. They don't understand why you matter in this equation, and actually, some of their most callous and self-centered beliefs can come out in these kinds of conversations. This leads us to the third reason, which is a misunderstanding of basic concepts like respect. When you are trying to explain these things to pathologically narcissistic people, when you're trying to explain to them that other people actually do matter, you will often be accused of trying to manipulate them. This is usually extremely confusing for most people who don't understand how simply advocating for fairness, respect, and consideration could possibly be considered manipulation. For narcissists, there's no understanding of these concepts. To them, it simply looks like you're trying to guilt, manipulate, or trick them into not getting what they want, and everything is perceived to that end. Showing consideration is asking permission. Asking for something is begging. It's groveling. It's demeaning. Basic respect is kissing someone's butt. Taking accountability is being blamed. Partnership and teamwork requires these hugely unfair sacrifices and self-abandonment on their part. Compromise is selling out. Apologizing is submitting. Admitting you're wrong is giving in. Complicating this further is the fact that many of them see changing their behavior or their mindset as changing who they are. It's not, of course, but many seem to feel very strongly that being convinced into changing their behavior is the equivalent of being brainwashed into becoming a different person. Their sense of self is so fragmented and fragile that they can react extremely negatively to this. It feels threatening and scary, as if they are being forced to lose the little bit of identity they actually have just so somebody else can win. This is much too high of a price to pay in the narcissist's estimation. They don't see it as agreeing to treat somebody better or taking accountability for their behavior so they can grow. They see it as losing. Remember, entitlement is about fear. That's why it explodes into rage if people don't get what they want. Entitlement is always about the fear of not getting what you need. It's not really about the thing that the person wants. It's about what it means if you don't give it to them. Because it's not just about the acquisition of the having. It's the validation of the getting. Every single thing, no matter how small or petty it is a life or death struggle for narcissists in the never-ending battle to get their needs met, and they absolutely must win. To lose is to fail. To fail to matter, and those who don't matter don't survive. To fail to get their needs met, and those who can't get their needs met don't survive. To fail to validate their power, and those with no power don't survive. With this mindset, it becomes all but impossible to do things differently because to do so feels too costly and too demeaning. The resentment and the anger created by feeling that they have been manipulated or talked into losing is part of what creates the devaluation that we're so familiar with. They may compromise, which is selling themselves out, in their opinion, in order to stay in a valuable situation, but they will eventually be extremely unhappy about having done that, regardless of how they present themselves in the moment. In the moment, they may be willing to say or do anything to get what they want, but that moment will end. The mask will drop back into place along with all of their quote-unquote normal beliefs and behaviors, and then you're going to be faced with the same selfish, oblivious person you have been facing this entire time. This happens because narcissists are in survival mode all the time, but there are differences in how survival mode can present itself. For example, there's a difference between being in survival mode because you're starving and looking for food, which is their normal day-to-day survival mode, and being in survival mode because someone is coming at you with a weapon trying to kill you, which is how facing the loss of a valued situation feels, for example. When that happens, they enter panic mode, and they will often agree to anything in order to re-secure the situation. Once that's done, though, normal survival mode kicks back in and they go back to how they were. This is their normal. This is how this person has always been. That leads us to the fourth reason that change is so difficult for narcissists. There's no desire to fix the problem. Why should there be? There is no problem. You're the one with the problem. What they do works for them as far as they can see, even though reality usually shows us that it actually doesn't. And so why should they change that? It's other people that are ruining everything. If that could just be changed, everything would be fine. Narcissists are unable and unwilling to take responsibility for anything, as we've discussed already. Even those who will admit they have a problem or a psychological dysfunction generally still don't think that this requires them to do anything or to change anything. You are supposed to do something about that. You know that they have a disorder or a problem or a challenge. You are supposed to address the problem, not them. You are supposed to change your behavior in deference to that. They don't need to do anything. They don't believe there's a problem, and if there is, they don't believe it's their job to fix it, and if it is, they don't know how to do that or believe they can succeed at it anyway, so what does it matter? It's easier to rely on others to make life easier for them to live by forcing everyone around them to take responsibility for their needs, their feelings, their well-being, and their behavior. They only know how to walk around doing what they've always done, which is hang on to life by the skin of their teeth, getting through one day at a time any way they can and at all costs. If it hurts other people, well, that's what you get for not following the script. You're not the star of this picture and you don't matter. You should have done your job, which is fulfill the narcissist's needs. After all, why else do you exist? Why else do you have needs, if not to use up the narcissist's resources? Why else do you have feelings, if not to affect the narcissist? Why else do you have value if not to enrich the narcissist? Why else do you make mistakes if not to embarrass or upset the narcissist? Why else do you do anything if it isn't to or for or from or toward or because of the narcissist? This is the way it is. You, as a sovereign person with your own feelings, thoughts, needs, desires, or anything else, are not reality to this person. There is no understanding of other people as human beings. Because of that, there's no desire to change the way that others are treated or how they're viewed. The pathologically narcissistic person does what they believe they need to do, and in their opinion, the ends justify the means. They also believe everybody else is doing the same thing. This is an immature, emotionally arrested person in survival mode who truly does not see the value in doing things differently. In fact, they see the opposite. Doing things differently is threatening, possibly harmful, and dangerous. With this mindset, nothing is ever going to change. That's why it doesn't. I hope this clears a few things up for you. As always, I look forward to your comments, questions, and suggestions, so please keep those coming. I take appointments online, over the phone, via text, via email, via messenger, and through Skype. So if you're interested in speaking with me one-on-one, you can visit littleshaman.org to do that. I teach workshops a few times a month, so if you're interested in attending one of those or seeing what we have to offer, you can visit littleshaman.org to do that as well. You've been listening to the Meditations and More podcast, brought to you by shamanspiritcenter.com and littleshaman.org. That's me, the Little Shaman. May the Great Spirit bless you and have a wonderful day.